This government meeting is brought to you by Eastworks and our local cable subscribers.
At 6:30.
Oh, I doubt it. Mickey's not going to get here till 7. Call the meeting, the regularly scheduled June meeting of the Southampton Local School Committee to order. 4 out of 5 members present. We've had the elections, so the first item of business is the reorganization of the body. We need to elect a chair, a vice chair, and a clerk, and then we can determine whether or not we're going to do committee assignments tonight or wait till September.
I nominate John Lumber to serve as chair of the school committee.
Second.
What was the motion?
For me to be the chair.
Aye.
Well, look, we can do this all together. Is there somebody for vice chair?
I nominate Dylan Maudsley.
Second.
Aye.
Hello. You okay with that?
Yeah.
Okay. Dylan?
What does the clerk?
The clerk is responsible for keeping track of when we go into executive session, what time we started, what time we ended, and just a brief synopsis.
The wording of the motions and
Yeah.
discussion was had is basically the entire.
Right. And then you share, the clerk then shares that information with Cassie, who puts it at the end of the minutes.
Oh, I can do that.
So I nominate Jen Johnson for clerk.
Second. All in favor of the slate?
Aye.
Opposed? So moved. Okay. Next, we have approval of the minutes of May 8th, 2024. Is there a motion to approve and second, then we can discuss?
Motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 8th, 2024.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Are there any discussion or corrections?
Yes. I have 3 corrections. Cassie, you don't have to try to keep up with what I'm saying because I'm going to read them, but I printed them for you so it'll be easier. Under reports for Hampshire Regional School Committee, it said something about, it didn't say that the field trips were approved, so I'm changing exchanged, the word exchanged for approved.
Oh, nice, okay.
And then under new business, letter C, the nurse leader updated job description. Dylan had asked a question and my response that's in these minutes isn't quite what I said. What I said was that the position represents a part-time stipend position. The NHRES is a full-time job and shouldn't be referenced in the nurse leader job description. And then under other, the second bullet under other, it said that Mr. Maudsley made a motion seconded by Ms. Tauscher to nominate Ms. Schott as the representative of Hampshire Regional School Committee. It was not me, it was Margaret. So that should say Ms. Larson, not Ms. Schott.
You should.
And that's it.
Any other comments or adjustments?
So much. Okay, that's wonderful. If you guys could speak up, it's easier for me to take action.
Okay. Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Public comment? None? Circulation of warrants? We don't have any. And announcements or correspondence? No. Principals report.
Okay, you have the report in your packets. I broke it up into 3 different areas: academics, planning for next year, and our field trips and activities. For academics, we did our last round of FastBridge testing, which shows us which students need an intervention or other things that we might need to know. And in reading, according to our FastBridge assessment, we have done an amazing job with phonemic awareness, which is our Haggerty that we instituted a couple of years ago. We're really seeing a big difference in our students. However, we need to focus on phonics instruction in grades K and 1 as a class-wide I don't want to say problem, but it showed more students at risk, so it's not just a problem to do intervention, take out small groups of kids. We actually need to do it grade-wide in KN1, so we will be doing that. We're going to figure out what to do for next year. And in math, we've seen really great progress among all grade levels that we can just continue with Tier 2 interventions like we have been, where we take small groups of students. We don't have any grade-wide issues happening in math. Everything looks really good. Planning for next year, we're moving grades 3, 4 from upstairs down to the 5th and 6th grade wing, and we're moving grades 5 and 6 upstairs. This is based on the threat assessment that was conducted by the police department. They had suggested it for a couple of years now, and we're finally able to coordinate that. I have some volunteers coming from Hampshire Regional for community service hours, and we're starting the move on June 18th. So all teachers in grades 3, 4, 5, and 6 will be packed up and ready to go for June 18th. We're revamping our special schedule, so this is really just for parents to hear, I guess. It'll be easier next year. I guess this year our schedule was different every single day, so you didn't know which day of the week you had gym and which day you needed to bring your sneakers. Next year it'll be the same Monday through Thursday, and we'll just rotate every Friday a different special, which will be helpful. That was feedback I got from parents and teachers. On some of the field trips that we have gone on this year and activities, grade 3 visited Arcadia May 31st. Our band recital was June 5th. We had hatch parties in kindergarten. All 4 kindergarten classes hatched chicks June 5th. And Hampshire Regional High School seniors walked through on June 6th. Girls on the Run held their final 5K this past Saturday at Winnick. It was a fantastic event. Myself and Mrs. Lukasiewicz were there to cheer them on. Our preschool picnic was held on Monday. It was a beautiful day. Grade 6 visited High Meadow yesterday. We had a wonderful time with all the students. I attended the field trip. And kindergarten visited Finney Farm also yesterday on June 11th. Tomorrow, the 5th graders are going to 5 Wits. I meant to add that and I forgot. Our enrollment has stayed the same. We're still at 480. And we are at capacity in kindergarten.
The only question that I've gotten asked, and I don't know the answer to, regarding the 4th or 5th and 6th, 3rd and 4th swap, are both sections, are the lockers the same size?
The lockers are bigger upstairs, which is another reason why it makes more sense for 5th and 6th graders to be up there, because they have bigger binders.
Gotcha.
Are the kids in the 3rd and 4th going to use the lockers?
Yeah.
They are.
Yeah.
Oh, do they use them upstairs?
Now. They do now, yeah. And they will downstairs. They're just a little more narrow.
Right, okay.
Yeah.
Other questions on? Nope. Superintendent's report. Oh, yeah, you also had North School improvement.
Sorry.
Oh, is that on the agenda?
Yeah, they put it under principal's
Oh,
report.
I didn't know that. I have it here if you'd like me to go over it. Just in case I brought it, because I didn't see that it made the agenda. I'll try to be quick.
Oh, thank you.
I am aware of one rising 5th grader who is not thrilled with the prospect of remaining upstairs.
Oh, well,
Saying.
I have a
Yeah,
6th
I have
grader
a-
who is not thrilled about the idea of
4th grader
going
as
back
well, but-
upstairs. However, my 3rd grader is thrilled.
4th graders are 4th, 5th, and 6th, yeah, no. Okay, so here is our school improvement plan. Thank you to Margaret Larson, Kim Picard, and Kim Irizarry, those were parents, and Margaret's from school committee. Christine Sullivan and myself all served on school council this year. Just some demographics on the front page and our MCAS scores, which I've already gone over with you in the past. We have 5 school goals. Number 1 being strengthening and developing the literacy skills of all students. Teachers will continue to deepen their understanding of the interdisciplinary body of scientifically based research on the science of reading. In addition, teachers will continue to implement Tier 1 core instruction in kindergarten through grade 5. We're hoping that 90% of the teachers will report an increase in their understanding of the core concepts of the science of reading by educating and engaging all teachers in those core concepts. So I don't want to like read everything to you, I'm just giving you the main points. So we already did the survey. We wanted to survey teachers to measure their present understanding of the science of reading, and all teachers will receive effective professional learning development on the science of reading to deepen their understanding of literacy instruction and to improve student outcomes. So that will be happening next year.
Bless you.
We also want to be sure that teachers are able to implement our program successfully within a defined literacy block, and teachers will identify instructional practices that they can implement in their literacy block by continuing to implement that Tier 1 literacy program of open court, sort of going backwards with the end in mind when I'm reading this to you. Through professional development, we're going to address some of the pacing and programmatic decisions that we're doing, and identifying teachers who can model the implementation of targeted strands in our open court. Now, this is like year 3 of this open court implementation. We have sort of identified in our heads some of the teachers that we feel are doing a great job implementing and who may be willing to model for others, is where we're sort of going with that. We're going to increase students' phonemic awareness in grades K through 2, so that 80% of the students demonstrate progress applying Haggerty strategies. Now, we may want to tweak that based on our FastBridge results that I just told you about, which were done after this. Our school goal number 2 is to maintain a tiered intervention model in ELA for all students in K-5, and having those reading interventionists has really been helpful. We're going to do the FastBridge screener 3 times a year. We moved to 4 times, but we're going back to 3. We found that it's more effective having it only 3 times than rushing to try to get a 4th time in there, and really focusing and targeting those interventions in between. And all students who are below the 30th percentile will receive a Tier 2 intervention. We're going to address the needs of students who do not show progress with those interventions. School goal number 3 is to maintain a tiered intervention model in math as well. We also measure that 3 times a year with the FastBridge screener. I'm giving you a chance to sort of read as I'm going. I don't want to rush. Students who show enough progress during that intervention are released from the intervention. We have seen many kids progress over a 6 weeks period where we're able to release them from the intervention, look at more data, and pick up new students for intervention that maybe didn't need it previously. So that's been really good. It's a real multi-tiered system of support for students, which is what we are supposed to be doing. The intervention team will continue to meet and analyze the data, which we've been doing. 100% of the students that are flagged for math intervention will be assigned one. Continuous professional development and math strategies and inquiry-based learning, so that 100% of the 3 through 6 math classes will meet or exceed Massachusetts state averages on MCAS. School goal number 4 is to provide for the safety and welfare of all students. So we would like to teach students how to identify their feelings and emotions and the vocabulary to respond appropriately. This is our second step program. Implement 3 school-wide values: kindness, responsibility, and safety. And periodically practice school evacuation and relocation drills, shelter-in-place, bus evacuation, and lockdown procedures. We wanted to memorialize that in our school improvement plan because it's things that we have to do anyway in order to provide for the safety and security of students. And then our number 5 is a technology goal. We would like to prioritize embedding technology into units in meaningful ways that develop technological skills, so that all students have access to a device, which we started during the pandemic, right? So we like to say we're a one-to-one school. We are. We do have access for every student to have a device. Not every student needs to take home a device, right? So they don't, but they do have, we do have enough devices for everyone to have a device in school when teachers are teaching those things. We also would like to prioritize a replacement plan so that all students and staff have up-to-date technology to support learning. And this is where our capital improvement committee, it becomes so important. Margaret had a lot to do with this last goal, serving on that capital improvement committee to continue to invest in replacing and maintaining technology to support learning. Our school library technology teacher also helps us with that goal to implement technology with students, and we want to continue to do that. So that's why we sort of put it into our school improvement plan. Does anyone have any questions?
Does the technology part of this address I remember meetings ago, it came up that the third graders have iPads, right?
Right.
They don't take MCAS, do they?
They do.
Right.
They do.
So they're not, and it's typing, and it's not necessarily something that they've been doing.
Right.
Opposed to the 5th and 6th graders who have their laptops that are typing all the time. So does any of this look to maybe change that as far as like when you were talking like replacement and stuff, like thoughts of like them having laptops so they have more keyboard work versus the iPads or anything like that?
Once this gets rolled out to the teachers, which it hasn't yet, I will get feedback from the third grade teachers about whether we want to add keyboards to the iPads that we have or change over. And I'm also waiting because Suzer, our technology department, we really are at a standstill as to whether the whole district is moving to the same model of technology. Were we all using Apple MacBooks, or are we moving to Chromebooks? And I didn't want to put anything in there that sort of, ties our hands to one or the other.
Right.
So once we have a new superintendent in place and we are revisiting our district improvement plan,
Gotcha.
then we'll tweak the school improvement plan according to that.
Gotcha. Can I ask one more question that goes back to your principal's report?
Yes.
Do we think the phonics part is in correlation because we stepped up the phonemic awareness and that kind of like
I think it has
lagged back kind of a thing?
I think it has a little bit to do with that and a little bit to do with our open court program. And we got rid of so between foundations, Haggerty, open court, we really have to figure out what's going to give us the biggest bang for our buck.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? No? Okay, thank you. Superintendent's report, I don't know that we need to read it all in. I'll just take a second to look at it. The one thing that I will note is that under the attendance report, that Norris is outshining everybody with the best attendance at 95% and the lowest average absence.
Yeah.
It's very good. It's a good spot to be ranked number 1.
I'll note that my last name is wrong.
I know.
No.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, your last name is wrong?
Yeah, my last name is Johnson. Fabiano is my maiden name, but I never changed my email address. So I'm guessing that's why.
Poor Julianne doesn't even get a thank you.
Okay. Brings us to the chair's report. The biggest thing that we've been dealing with ADC is the superintendent search, and we're going to bring that up under new business, so I'm not going to discuss it here. Margaret did send a written update regarding Hampshire Regional that I will quickly just go over. The Hampshire Regional High School update is implementing an official cell phone-free procedure with storage bags for the phones. This will be implemented and reviewed as a trial period at the discretion and direction of the principal. This was a very long discussion. They reviewed the budget and made suggestions to possibly reduce E&D for fiscal year '24, took care of some lingering negotiation MOAs, approved a job description with modifications for the nurse lead and treasurer's positions, and finally, they approved a field trip out of the country to Quebec City for 2025. We'll have students going to France, Spain, and Canada next year. That's our update. PTO.
Oh, yeah, so they had their last meeting of the school year last week, And actually, it was very exciting because it was the passing of the torch from the current, I guess I'm going to call them board of directors, to, they elected new people to chair and be treasurer and secretary and all that. So it was really nice to see that, people are engaged, and the people who were leaving are still very much there to offer support and all that. So they're not, nobody's being thrown into the deep end in the different things that they're taking on. So the treasurer's report showed that, like, for the school year, PTO funded over $25,000 worth of things, whether it was teacher requests for classroom supplies or equipment, a lot of money. Buses have gotten really expensive for field trips, so PTO has done a lot to defray the costs of buses for various field trips. So they've done a lot, they've worked really hard, and the new group looks like they're really excited to come in and take over, so that's it.
Okay. School council, Elise already gave us the update from that. And collaborative for educational services, there is no update. Select board update, we're going to, we have our outside auditors coming in next week to give us the fiscal year 22 report. And then we have already started working on fiscal year 23. 23's been done, but anticipation of the issues we had closing 22 and 23, I asked Mickey to focus on that for the 24, and that's going to be part of his 11-page report to us when he gets here.
I have a question about select board.
Sure.
There's 2 open seats on Hampshire Regional School
There is.
Committee. Have you advertised it for people
We
to
have.
send you letters of?
Yes.
Have you gotten any?
I wouldn't know that, and the reason I wouldn't know that is because it was just at the last select board meeting
Okay. All right.
that we did a 30-day call.
Oh, good, okay.
So for that meeting, when we do have it, it will be this body and the select board. Actually, it won't be this body. It'll be whoever's on this body that's on Hampshire Regional, with the Southampton people elected to Hampshire Regional and the select board that will decide who the next, who's going to fill those 2 seats for the remainder of this year until the next election.
Should no one apply, what is?
Then if no one applies, the school committee is completely removed from it and the select board appoints. Then at that point, the select board has the authority to appoint a current elected officials, which I suspect will just be North School Committee members.
Okay,
Really?
good to know.
You can suspect that.
And I guarantee you, it will not be the chair.
What's the committee that's?
There's 2 open seats on Hampshire Regional School Committee from the, right, okay. So we're going to skip over budgets, and we're going to go into new business. We'll come back to the budgets. First item is review medication policy, second reading.
I move that we approve the administration medication file JLCD-R.
Second.
-R.
Yes, that's what it
The
says.
lawyer said we're not supposed to be voting on this because it's a procedure, not a policy. Because it came up last night, I got it. The JLCD is the policy, the JLCD-R is the procedure with the nurses.
Oh,
Okay.
withdraw
Right.
that motion.
I'm sorry, can you read the motion again?
Samantha, please.
Samantha Pease. Thank you.
So there's 2 documents in our file. The first one is file JLCD. The second one is JLCD-R.
So withdraw my motion and move to approve the administering medicines to students policy file JLCD.
And I will second that.
There's a motion made and seconded. Is there any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Opposed? So moved. Review nurse leader updated job description. soon as I get through the procedure. Job description, okay. Now, my understanding, I don't know if anybody knows this, but this job description, we're not the first committee to approve this, right? Job description?
AGC approved it, which I thought it stopped there, but my understanding is Chesterfield Goshen has approved it, and Hampshire approved it, except that they modified it by taking out the, it's got the salary in it, and they didn't think that the salary belonged in the job description, so if you look under terms of employment, so Hampshire approved it without the salary being stated in it.
I eliminated that line? Yeah. So I would say for the purposes of consistency,
We should take that.
either eliminate the line or make it,
Well, we don't usually put a salary in a job description, so I think,
it's usually like a range, but if you do it,
right.
but here I think it was like,
So this is not like the position that was full-time before. This is just the part-time position, correct?
correct. So is somebody making, offering an amendment or a motion to,
I move that we adopt the district nurse leader 24-25 job description with the amendment of striking the line regarding compensation under terms of employment.
so the motion is to approve it, but strike the second bullet point under terms of employment in its entirety. Motion's made by Dylan. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Jen. Discussion? All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No,
Okay, motion carries.
Who was the no?
I was,
3 to 1, 0. All right, next is approval of appointment of nurse leader. We have in the packet a letter and resume from Samantha Pease, a BSN RN NCSN. So, this is before us because it is one of the roles of the superintendent to put somebody forward for this position. This is Dr. Bonneville's asked for consideration, and I believe Hampshire Regional, Chesterfield Goshen, and Easthampton have already approved. And Samantha is here, if anybody has any questions.
You're from Billerica. I'm from Tewksbury.
Anybody have any questions? Or are you still reading?
Still reading.
Still reading, my goodness.
Okay, in the future, you should pre-read your material. This is not Hampshire Regional. We do not strive for 4-hour meetings.
How do we feel about this appointment?
that is not an advertisement for
So-
trying to fill those 2 seats, John.
I know. So here's my personal take on this, since you guys are still reading. I see this as, at worst case scenario, that this is a one-year fix for us. At best case scenario, this is now the new norm going forward. But we need to have something in place so we can close the year and start the year correctly. And I almost think we need somebody named by the end of June 30th to get the year going. Potentially, we're going to approve the new superintendent coming in on a 3-year contract shortly. Then we can set this in place for next year, let Dr. Pereiro evaluate this and make a recommendation, as we're going to ask him to do with everything else that's there. And that Nurse Pease is graciously enough come forward to fill this gap for a year.
I move that we approve the appointment of Samantha Pease as nurse lead.
Motion made by Dylan. Is there a second? I will second. Discussion, are you still reading, Joe?
Well, when you get to the discussion point, I'll ask my question.
Discussion?
So you're currently the nurse at New Hingham?
Correct.
And she's gonna stay the nurse at New Hingham and
And
this
get
is
a
gonna be-
stipend that would be above and beyond those hours.
And it's just because I'm new and all my other stuff is, on the other side of the table. This stuff is being done outside of her normal school day? During her normal school day? What is the,
Do you want to answer that?
I'm just
So,
first meeting.
Before you answer though, because we're broadcasting live, if you could go to the microphone so the folks watching at home. And yeah, the little green light should come on.
Okay.
Just state your name.
Samantha Pease. Can you hear me? Okay. So if you look at the job description, there's 19 duties under the responsibilities. This was all put together by all of the nurses. We all worked on this together. Out of the 19 duties, 11 of them have to be completed before September 1st, before the first day of school. So out of the remaining 8, the ones that are still remaining would be orient and mentor new district health staff. We're hoping that whoever comes in at Westhampton will be a seasoned school nurse, and that won't necessarily be necessary. But right now, we do not have a candidate. Maintain compliance records, that's going to be happening throughout the school year. That's something that we're going to do all together as a team. Statistical reports, that'll be at the end of the year. Attend all regional and state nurse leader conferences. That's once a school year, so that's at the end of the school year. And it's one school day. School committee meetings as the nursing representative, obviously, here I am. And then the other things would be the coordinating of the wellness committee. That's something I'm going to start over the summer, and it will just be a meeting every quarter moving forward. Coordinating and applying for and maintaining the records for health and safety grants. That is something that Dr. Bonneville asked me to include in this. I honestly don't know how to write a grant, so I'm hoping that I can get someone from central office to help with that. But that will probably be a mixture of summer and outside of my working hours, and then additional duties as assigned. So most of everything else, it's going to be in the summer, and then it's going to be just assisting the nursing staff as needed. So even just now, we all call each other throughout the day and ask questions. And I have an agreement with my principal, Amanda, and if it ever gets in the way of my New Hingham duties, we're going to make an adjustment. But we're in a good agreement at this point, so I'm not worried about my ability to
Do both.
Yes, because I do have a very low workload. I do not have very high medical needs at my school this year or this coming year. And based off the census in the 2 towns, we don't have anything anticipated.
Will this hiring allow the med delegations to be done like they were before?
Correct.
So the kids in our school, like especially the preschool, their EpiPens will be able to be back in the classrooms and all that.
But that's if the nurses in the building choose to delegate. This gives us the option for that, but the nurses in the building have to agree
Correct.
to delegate, and they can't be forced to delegate, so I don't know where they stand on that. I'm just wanting to be clear that this gives us the option for MedDel. It doesn't guarantee that it will happen.
Right.
Okay.
And if it doesn't happen, it's because the local school nurse,
Has a reason.
yeah.
Right. But she would be the person that would be able to go in and make sure all the teachers have their EpiPen training and all of that stuff. So if that nurse chooses, they would be allowed to have those in the classroom as they did prior to losing stuff.
Correct. Yep.
No names.
Sorry, the previous person. I had another question, now I can't think of what it is. Oh, is this, if we approve this, is this like we're approving it for 1 year and we're talking about it again next year? Or like we're approving it and it's how it is from going now forward?
Right now, it's currently in the budget for a 1-year stipend.
Okay.
So, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then we would,
Revisit.
in theory, we'd have to fund it. We'd have to consciously fund that line item in the following budget.
But at the same time, the school committees have not eliminated a director of health services position. We just didn't fund it this year. And when we talked about this at ADC, one of the things we talked about was hoping that we could fund a full-time Director of Health Services position for fiscal '26. So will there be a discussion? Yes, because once we start the budget talks, we're going to have to be looking at, is this a priority for people? And if it is, are we going to be able to fund it?
Right.
So this is possibly a one-year thing.
Okay, that's the thing. I didn't want to say, we're saying yes to this, and it's like, okay, this is what it's going to be from now on. I agree that I like that other thing is still on the table eventually.
Yeah, I mean, we have an assistant superintendent for curriculum instruction and assessment. We have a special ed person. We have a business manager. There are some kids, the only reason they can go to school is because we have health services, and I think I personally think that deserves the same level of support in central office that all those other components of going to school get.
I agree.
So-
All the nurses agree, including myself.
I agree, so that's why I was
Yes.
I'm hesitant to say yes to this if it was like a.
Yes.
Right, and that's why I've been opposed.
Got it.
Right.
And so anything I say tonight has absolutely nothing to do with the person standing in front of us. I just want that to be clear.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other discussion? All right, there's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstaining?
I'm going to abstain.
One abstention. 301. Thank you.
Thank you.
And thanks for coming in to Southampton tonight. Okay, next item on the agenda is the ratification of the superintendent contract for Dr. Vito Perrone. Now, before I start down this road, a couple rules of engagement. If anything other than an up or down vote is called for, we will suspend this discussion and reschedule a meeting for executive session. We don't have executive session on our agenda. I was not informed until afterwards that any open discussion, other than me providing the highlights of the contract, cannot happen in a public setting without first happening in executive session, and that the candidate be available to participate in that discussion. So I will go over the highlights. If somebody wants to make a motion at the end to approve it based on that, we'll have the vote. It's up or down, but we don't want to get into discussions of hypothetically, well, why was it an X% increase when it could have been this? Everybody good?
Yep.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, we negotiated a 3-year contract effective July 1st of 2024 between all the groups to employ him as our superintendent until June 30th of 2027. He has the general responsibilities and that allowed by law of superintendent. Salary, fiscal year '25 will be $175,000 to start. Fiscal year '26 is a 3% increase to $180,250. Year 3 is a 3% increase, $185,657. Travel reimbursement will be in accordance of out-of-district policy. Travel reimbursement for out-of-district travel already. There is no reimbursement for in-district travel. Professional conference and dues, and most of this is standard and was in our previous contracts. We will reimburse up to $2,500 annually, contingent upon approval of the Hampshire group for attendance, food and lodging at professional conferences upon written submission of expenses. Dues, we will pay for group dues and association costs for no more than 2 associations, provided that each one of the 2 must be different. So it could be a state, it could be a national, it could be a regional, but it can't be 2 states. We have to set goals with them. We will provide a district-issued laptop and cell phone. As we previously do, vacation time will be 25 paid days per year, July 1st to June 30th. Superintendent is allowed up to 10 days to be carried over from the previous year, allowing for up to 35 days to be utilized in any 1 year covered. In the event that the superintendent wishes to use more than 10 vacation days at a time, prior approval of all 5 school committees must be received. That, for example, if we went to Europe for 30 days in the middle of MCAS, probably not going to get approved. If the superintendent should leave prior to the end of the fiscal year and already use vacation days, it'll be prorated and he will reimburse the district. Personal days, 3 personal days, use it or lose it policy per year. Health insurance is the same as all our other contracts, as well as the life insurance. Sick leave, superintendent will begin employment credited with 30 sick days. However, should he leave prior to his completion of his 24th month of the contract, any sick time used over 15 days will be paid back to the district out of the final paycheck. Superintendent will be entitled to 15 days per year and can bank up to 60 days at a max. If the superintendent retires from the district and gives us a minimum of 1 year's notice, be entitled to a buyback of sick time at 50%, but it will occur in the following fiscal year so that we have time to budget for it. Retirement is standard. Holidays, same. Bereavement, 5 days for immediate family members as defined. There will be an evaluation process done annually, provided overall rating of exemplary by all committees will trigger a performance bonus of $2,500. Longevity in years 4, 5, and 6, so after this contract expires, would be $4,000, $5,000, and $6,000. That's to maintain his license. Standard exit clauses by either us or the superintendent. That didn't change. The renewal, non-renewal notice hasn't changed. And then the other section is that we will make available to the superintendent a 403B program. He, at his discretion, if he obtains a performance bonus, if he gets sick buyback at retirement, if he gets longevity, he can direct us to apply those as employer contributions into his 403B. And he's also allowed to participate to the extent the IRS allows in a 403B wage withholding. That's the crust of it.
Can I make a motion?
Sure.
All right, so I move to approve the employment contract with Dr. Vito Perrone.
Second.
There's a motion made and seconded. All those in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained? Motion passes. 4-0-0. And I have no doubt if Margaret was here, she'd vote in favor of it. Cassie, could you just modify that motion? I know we just made it, but just on the other and her motion, and just say authorize the chair to sign on behalf of the committee?
I'm not sure you are. I thought we were talking about Vito.
Yeah, on the motion to approve the contract.
Okay.
For Dr. Vito, and that the chair is authorized to sign the contract
Okay.
on behalf of the committee.
Okay, yes, I agree to that. Sorry, I should have said that.
Aye.
All right.
Aye.
Okay.
So that's on the record, we're all good with you.
We are.
All right.
Approved, because I already typed the name in. Approval to authorize the chair to sign all warrants. This is up to the committee. So normally during the summer, we go down to summer recess, and then we say, before COVID, only the chair had to sign the warrants to pay the bills. You guys want to see all the invoices in July and August, that's fine with me, or we can just do the single signature. Whatever you want to do.
Move to authorize the chair to sign all the warrants for July and August.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Other business that cannot wait until the next regularly scheduled meeting.
You want to do our committee things while we're waiting?
Oh, yes, we can do that. So we have committee assignments. We need somebody to be our representative for 2 people for ADC, 1 person for Hampshire Regional, 1 for PTO, 1 for school council, 1 for collaborative for educational services, and then the select board. Now, ADC is typically the chair and 1 alternate, and the rest of them can be free-for-alls. I'll volunteer to do the select board since I'm there anyways.
I'd like to do ADC and PTO, if you guys are okay with that.
I'd like to do CES.
Margaret's willing to do Hampshire Regional, she told me already, and she's also willing to do,
I would love to do school council.
Can you take 2 on school council?
Why? Who else wants to do?
I would just,
Oh, does Margaret still want to do school?
she wants to see the capital project through. But if she takes 2, you have no assignment, which means the next thing that pops up, whatever it might be, however ugly it is, you're getting it.
Well, I thought I was going to get Julianne's, which I was not excited about.
Oh.
So the fact that Dylan wants that.
It's quarterly meetings.
Maybe they can share it. You know, if one can't go,
Yeah.
the other one goes.
Whatever, whatever it is, I don't care.
All right.
Clearly, I'm a little man on totem pole, so that's fine.
The,
On Margaret's toes.
do we also want to do, you know how we also had
Alternate.
an alternate for ADC in case, and I think Margaret, well, I don't want to speak for her. I didn't ask her if she was willing to do it again.
Don't show up, you get volunteered.
Yeah, I don't want to do that, so maybe we can do that at the next meeting.
are you okay with being the alternate for ADC, so there's always at least 2 of us there?
I don't know what that means, but sure.
The All Districts Committee, it's the 2 members from each of the school committees.
Right. But say I can't make it, and
Yeah.
Kim can, you would go in my place.
Sure.
Okay.
All right. Okay, so in this order, we'll do it all as a group. So the ADC appointments will be myself and Kim as the primary, with Jen as the alternate. Hampshire Regional School Committee member will be Margaret. PTO will be Kim. School Council, Margaret. Collaborative for Educational Services will be Dylan. And I'll take the Select Board.
Motion to approve that slate of volunteerism.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? None. Okay, so this is, I just want to feel everybody out. What I would like to do is obviously take July and August off, unless there's some big emergency that we have to come in. But I would like to have a meeting probably that last week of August, and for it to be a joint meeting of the school committee, our school committee, Select Board, and the Finance Committee, for the purposes of doing a walk-through Norris led by Tom Lavelle. So that and I'll be flexible with the date, whatever is convenient for Eliza and Tom. So I'd like us to get a firsthand, here's what's going on in the school, here's where we are as we start the year, be able to put eyes on it. Because next year, again, I want to start, we did get the money. I think I reported this. We got the money to replace all the valves, the control valves in the HVAC system over there. So that's $118,000. So that work will be done this summer. But I think I've done this walkthrough with Tom, and you get into areas that the public doesn't get to, which is good too. But he's also very knowledgeable and plain spoken on what needs to be there. So I think my hope would be at the end of this joint meeting that there would be a consensus that we've got to start doing something with that building, because rebuilding it or building a new school is just not feasibly in the cards for us as a town, I suspect.
Did we ever get the money to do that?
Well, so it didn't get appropriated,
The
study.
brochure, the projection,
Right.
like, thing?
Yep.
Oh.
Yep. So this is my attempt to, let's get everybody in there so they can see it and see that it's a real need or necessity to do.
Can we have the public come too?
Well, it would be posted as a public meeting. I don't think Eliza or Tom are going to want 200 people roaming the school with us.
I'd be surprised if 2 showed up.
So we wouldn't be able to turn anybody away,
Okay.
but we're not going to flash it on Facebook until
No.
afterwards.
Right, but again,
Yeah.
that's,
I mean, if somebody wants to live stream it as we're going through, maybe. We can talk about that, but is everybody open to the idea?
yes.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that's
Okay. All right, so that'll be our next meeting, sometime the last 2 weeks of August, and we'll have, sometime after the 4th of July, I'll reach out to Eliza and see what works for her and Tom, and get that in their calendars.
Still talking about new business?
Sure.
should we think about, since Margaret talked about the up at Hampshire Regional, the whole no phones in the school? I know it's a problem at our school as well. So is it something that we think we might want to look into, talk about?
Well,
What's the subject?
no cell phones during school.
Oh, okay.
I'm not, so the extent that we could is, A, is there an existing policy on cell phones? And if there is, we can certainly look at that.
Okay.
And work in consultation with the principal. I don't think there is one, though, at the
I don't think
elementary
so
school
either.
level.
A policy or a problem?
We can only do policy.
Right, there's in the handbook, it says it's a procedure, but it's not a policy.
Are we allowed to make a new policy?
We can certainly, yes, we can have a discussion on it.
Okay, I'm just,
Yeah.
If you go to the MASC website, I think they have sample policies that you can look at that, gives you a place to start.
okay.
Do you want me to make a note to put that on our September agenda?
Yeah, I would actually, yes.
So I think probably the first step would be to ask, normally we would test superintendent with this and then they would talk to the principal, but maybe we can skip that step for tonight.
Yep.
I'll tee it up and I'll send it to the superintendent and have him get a draft thing, and then they would work together and come forward with us with a recommendation. So we're not starting with a blank sheet of paper.
Okay.
Right? All right.
It's definitely a problem, I agree.
And I feel like it's maybe helpful to be more consistent, and if we started it now, and it works out that the high school policy, their test run is a go, and they move forward with it being a permanent thing, then it won't be such a jump, and the kids will already be used to it not being a thing.
Okay. Anything else? So do we have, the ongoing business, is there an update on the security upgrades?
Yes, we've had security integration system in the building for about 2 weeks working on things, sporadically, not every single day, all day long, but pulling cables and things. So they haven't actually installed the cameras yet, but the power is going to the places that it needs to be. So they're working on it.
All right. So we're going to meet the deadline to get the full
We should-
reimbursement from the state?
Yeah, we are aiming at meeting that deadline.
Okay.
Yep.
And is there a preschool van update?
There's a preschool van update, so the van has been ordered, which is fantastic, and it's gonna be red.
Really?
You didn't say I couldn't pick red. No.
Blue, though.
He came with the prototype, and it's red, and I think that it'll really stand out, and it'll be fine, it'll be fine.
Still going to have the tiger down the side,
And the
right?
tiger, we're gonna get the tiger put on, and it will still look like a Norris, yeah.
Love that.
I just think it'll be very
Like a
visible.
fire truck when they hit the
Right.
school bus lights.
We are going to add an extra layer of lights to it because our preschool van driver currently says that, even a police officer drove right by it one day when it was picking up or dropping off, because it's just not, you just don't expect it.
Notice it enough,
You just
yeah.
don't expect it. So, yeah, we should have it mid to late August, hoping for September.
What's happening with the old one? Are they taking it in
They are
trade?
going to take it as a trade,
Okay.
and I'm still negotiating that. I'm hoping to get more money from them.
It's of no use to us. They
I know,
can't
I
pass
know.
a state inspection,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
we
yeah,
want
yeah.
more money for
And
it.
they'll take it away, so we don't have to worry about it. They'll take it off the road, yeah.
I think we're trying to get off of zero.
Well, yeah. So he was supposed to add that into the quote that he gave us for the price of the van, it wasn't there. So I went back and said, what about, the trade-in? So we're working on it.
Okay. All right, so that's all good. Okay, so now we'll go back up to budgets. No problem. I believe,
So,
Thank you. You could probably give this to
I've got the electronic version.
Perfect.
There you go. All right, so I'll give you a chance to read it, but my overall goal was to try to get at least some update to each school committee and to each principal about the state of the budget. And so I was able to, over the last couple of weeks, get to focus on all 5 of them for the first time. The bottom line is there's a lot more money in there than I think people knew. And so all that money that used to be off the books means that, yep, there's a lot of money. So I'll let you read it, and it'll explain a little bit about where all the money, you know, like, it's good news for next year. And then we can go through as much detail as you want.
So while we were in the process of closing out the 23 books here in town, we had to reconcile the accounts, and they reconciled the accounts, but the time wasn't on our side, so they got reconciled, we closed them out, we certified free cash, and, you know, the town ended up with $983,000 in free cash.
What do they normally, what's a historical norm?
6. So the other step is, I think what we missed, and I think everybody missed it, I didn't notice it until the free cash number came in, is we didn't try to, like our general fund line item for general money from the town, we gave back a little over $300,000, but we used our school choice money, right? So we could have done a line item transfer.
Yeah.
So with that, hey, it happened, but to close 24, I asked Mickey to also try and focus on that if there are line item transfers that we can vote on tonight and sign off on.
There are, yeah, I got line item transfer. I brought the 23, there's line item transfer in 23 you can do. The other committees haven't been, seems like a bridge too far, but the 24 stuff is there. But the bigger stuff, I mean, the line item transfer within the general fund, the bigger news is that there was substantially more money in the general fund than was needed, especially given how much grant money traditionally the school relies on to pay salaries. Because the general fund was over budgeted, so from 23 to 24, the salary line bumped up 24%, general fund salary line. And I think we talked about that once, that I suspect that the biggest reason was that the 23 and before, when districts were given their budget numbers, the salaries included only the general fund portion of the salaries, and the rest was in that off-the-books grant area. Yeah. And when Andrea Wadsworth was doing the budgets for 24, I don't think she had the full picture of how everything went. It was very, very difficult to get the grant information, and I don't think the communication was there, so I think that she put all of the salary numbers into the general fund, which jumped that general fund salary number for this year way up. Now, in doing so what I've done, and we can undo as much of this as you want, is I aim to get all of the money that can carry over to next year available as much as possible. So I was able to move all of the spending out of school choice revolving, all of the spending out of preschool revolving, all of the spending out of rural aid for 24, all the spending out of REAP for 24, and I even was able to move all the spending out of the IDEA and title grants for 24. All of those funds can carry over and be used next year. And with that, there's still $235,000 going back to the town, unless Elisa and I were talking earlier about the ban and where that's coming from. So I mean, there's enough money in different places to do different things. I don't know how much the norm is about the end of the year general fund balance that goes back to the town. There's always some, but I'm not sure what size it is normally.
I don't know the answer to that from a historical point of view.
It's not easy for me. I tried to look it up and find it, but. So, I mean, the good news is, you know, you're going to have more funds available next year And I think that the next phase of the financial reconciling that has to be done, most of it's going to be trying to straighten out the grant funds. They're still really messy. And there's a lot of grant reporting and auditing that has to get done. But I think one thing is going to be, this is my attempt to give you a picture of all of the funds. So if you look at the back side of the memo and the first side of the next page, that is a picture of the balances, not just for the general fund, but also, the town accounts, I guess I messed that up. I had numbers in there. But also for rural aid, for the grants that have activity in the general ledger, and for the revolving funds. And so in the revolving funds, I tried to give you a sense of what the balance is and what the change in the balance is. So for example, school choice revolving started the year at $258,000, and because we were able to move all the spending out of it, it goes up to $525,000 for next year, right? So I'm hoping that this provides a better launching point for both Eliza and the committee, and for whoever's coming in to take the next steps on the finances, to be able to get a clearer picture. And I think that when it gets to the budgeting for 26, and as you go through the 25 expenditure year, I think you'll have a clear picture about what's needed, what are you going to use the grant money for, and a little bit tighter picture on budget requests to each town. Right. And since all the districts interrelate, I would say that this general picture is the same at the other districts that I've finished this reconciling for, that there is the presence of that money that was off the books and not really seen. There was quite a bit available, and so I was able to do similar things, maybe not to the same extent, but to be able to have carryover move forward so that the school has
Right, so if,
funds.
and I don't know that you can get, that you have the ability to ask the questions I'm going to ask here, because they're somewhat detailed, but like the ESSER 3 money, there's still 33,000 encumbered, but like for 23, we were told that was zeroed out, and which it shows zeroed out, but it shows some bill hasn't been paid yet, or something. I mean, why would we carry?
The 33 for ESSER 3 is salary money that is encumbered and going to be paid out through the summer. So there are teachers that are being paid through ESSER 3, and so that 33.6 is spoken for and is going to, be expended once the salaries go out through the summer.
Right, but we're not having a summer program. We didn't have a summer program last year.
So all the teachers who get paid through the summer are being paid off of.
If they spread their pay cycle. I got you.
That's what that accrued pay is, and that's true. So like you'll see the IDEA 240 grant, that 24,500 that's encumbered is going to go out. And
after they complete the cycle of
it's going to be it's payroll that'll go out. Gotcha. And so the negative expenditure in there will end up zeroing it out once that payroll goes out.
Okay.
So what will carry forward, I should have added this more, so you're going to actually carry forward ESSER 3 and ESSER 2 we wanted to spend out, right? So ESSER 2, there was some money came in, we entered with a tiny amount. We were able to apply that to spending that happened in September and before. ESSER 3 could be spent through September, but there's no reason to play games with that. Let's get that done. So that'll be done now. But the IDEA 240, and then going on to the second page there, IDEA 262, the REAP 24, the Title I and the Title IIA, all of those funds are two-year money. So the 24 award year can be spent in 24 or 25. So because I was able to move the spending out of that, that money will be available next year as well.
Okay. But 23 has to go.
So now here's the
Where-
key,
Yep.
is, so 23 REAP, you'll see that 23 REAP, I expended all of it. So we entered the year with 18,000, we expended all that. But you'll notice that the IDEA grants and the title grants have 0 budget numbers. That's because those are the areas that are the biggest messes that still have to be worked on.
Okay.
I couldn't tell you how much has been spent from, let's take just the IDEA 240 grant, the big sped grant. I couldn't tell you how much has been spent from the 21 award year, or the 22 award year, or the 23 award year, or the 24 award year across the district, because the combination of factors of the accounting with the spending happening across the schools, but the money coming into Hampshire and transfers happening in inconsistent ways, and the account coding not being consistent, and not being able to identify what fiscal year spending is happening. I couldn't tell you that. That's going to take a lot of reconciliation.
Okay.
But, and I would guess that there will, once that reconciliation happens, there will be money that'll have to be turned back to the federal government. The timelines will be too late to.
How many commas?
How many what?
How many commas in the money going back to the federal government do you anticipate? Are we talking less than 100,000 or over a million?
I just have no idea, because I'm not sure how far back it goes. Like, when I first got here, I spent the month of July really diving into the grant spending.
Okay.
And it was incredibly entangled and not getting back to it. And this was the thing when we had Mass Munifin and our accountant working with us, that we said that that's going to have to be a next year thing, that's going to be too much to try to get done before we have to get some coherence to the 24 year. So those are the budget areas that I can't give you the clearest picture on. The fact that we didn't have to spend any of the 24 money for the Southampton district means that there will be money in those areas for next year.
And in theory, once somebody straightens out the ARPA money, right? Because those accounts aren't being fully charged each time.
Yeah, and so
we should only have so much left. We had the teachers and we had the paras, right? Those were specific jobs. We just need to line up who it was. So somebody was getting paid but not charged to that line, getting charged in general expenses. But once we can identify that, that'll alleviate, draw down ARPA and credit the general fund or the general budget, right?
So ARPA, so when I reached out to you earlier today, if ARPA money carries over to next year, I can reassign the salaries that are hitting ARPA to the general fund and have that ARPA money stay available either to the school or to the town. I'm not sure how the voting goes.
Isn't this our second year?
I think it's our third.
Yeah, so we
think this is it.
need the ARPA bucket zeroed out.
Zeroed out means spent down.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, I think we could go to December of this year. And that was part of our line item in the budget. I'll go back to my notes and let you know, but
You think that December of '24 is the last time that money can be spent?
Per the vote of the select board. The select board they didn't go all the way out. They cut it off early. And so the thought is, because we have to, whatever funds haven't been spent, we can reappropriate then, but then they have to get spent.
So it would be, so you can see right now on the ARPA line that it is overdrawn by 20,000. I just left that until we had this conversation. What I'll do is I'll reassign the 20,000 that's overspent, but then that'll be the full 81,148 that was budgeted.
But there's two ARPA awards, right? Because there was one ARPA for the teachers, one ARPA for the paras. Professional training was multiple years ago.
And they were voted on separately in the same year or in separate years?
They were awarded in the same year but voted separately because Yeah, first we only got 18 months worth of funding, and then we got another 6 months with a promise to look at the additional 6 months.
And
should
this is
there
the
be extra.
third year, so it would have been 22 that the money first
I think it was 21.
appropriated?
20,
I can pull out the
Right.
individual votes on the spreadsheet.
22, 3, 4.
22, 3, 4. Okay,
You have this in your email, I'm sure.
okay,
I have a question here, second.
okay.
It was like BCBA and teacher, I think, were the last two.
And then, Dylan, do you have a question on the ARPA, or?
No, it's other stuff I can wait, if you're not done with that.
So actually, so there are two different individual line items for ARPA. There's actually a third for ARPA professional development.
That was 2 years
That
ago.
should be gone.
Yeah.
Okay, so money's hitting that. Okay, so I'll move the money out of the professional development and hit that someplace else. But then that 81,148 is the combined award, I believe, and that was what was on the recap that was approved in '24 to come into the year, was 81,148.
Right.
And so the combined spending across the paras and the instructional and the teachers, it's overspent right now, but I'll shift some of that spending into a general fund account for those groups, so that it'll be zeroed out. So 81,148 we spent overall.
So what effect does that have on the neurodiversity? This is not my question, by the way, because we had fully funded, so this ARPA grant runs on the calendar year. The neurodiversity program we funded for fiscal year '25 in the regular budget. So I know we had talked about using that ARPA money for that fiscal year '25 till December, so July 1 of this year through December of this year. Where does that fall? Where is that? What you looking at?
Yeah, I'm waiting for the document.
Can I ask my other question then while you're doing that?
Sure.
You want to not change gears?
Well, is it complicated, your other question?
Kind of.
Hold on one second.
So is the question, how is the neurodiversity program going to be funded next year?
No, we got that figured out. I think the question is with the ARPA money on the line being overspent, is that for the closing, is that overspending accounting for just fiscal year '24, or is that taking into account that the ARPA runs on a calendar year and we have committed funds through December of '24, so half of fiscal year '25? So is it in fact underspent, or is it over? Is it in fact overspent, or is it really underspent?
So I treated it that the town allocated 81,148 to the school. If that money, if the town's allocation and that vote says it has to be spent within a different time frame than the school year, then I'd have to look at it. But essentially, 81,148 is available to spend, and it's overspent because more salary money hit that account than hit the general fund account. But that was because everything was on autopilot and we weren't trying to balance things throughout the year.
The total ARPA award to Norris was $331,513, of which...
In FY '22.
No, the awards were all for fiscal year '23 and '24.
Okay.
So '23, which is done, was $168,288. Fiscal year '24 is $163,225. And '24 is what closes in 2 weeks, right?
Okay.
Yeah.
So the recap sheet had a different number on it. All right. So we got 163. Okay. All right. Well, then that is vastly not underspent. And so if that budget number goes up to 163,225, then
Yeah, 163,225
if we
is
want it to
available
be
to be
fully
drawn
spent,
down.
then I'll move money out of general fund and
Right, so,
from ARPA.
and that's one of the things where Bradley's got those numbers where he's showing it's off a little bit. We've just got to tell him
Right.
what needs to be reclassified, because, again, I mean, to me, I know nothing's easy, but this should just be payrolls, right? That's all that's in there. You know, who were the teachers, and they must have got coded to a regular line item versus the neurodiversity program.
what happened was that whatever was in there in '23 just stayed, right? So
And that's
I
possible
had zero
because,
ability to pay attention to the '24 budgets
so
at the time, and so it just was on autopilot.
in '23, the following line items were 0, and in '24, we funded them. It's the the BCBA analyst, the special education teacher, and who else? And a special ed paraprofessional. So, again, I made a note here. Afterwards, I'll grab this one section here that has everything, and I'll shoot to you guys, or to you.
Now, in terms of like reconciling with the town, I suspect that that will happen after I'm gone. Unlikely that that the timeline will work out to get that stuff straightened out. I might be able to get through this ARPA stuff with Bradley before I go. But the key to those next steps is just, I'm talking to Vito now that it sounds like, I think he's got another step or two before it's official and final.
This committee's already approved the contract. We're the first ones.
And so all 5 do have to approve the contract?
4 out of 5.
4 out of 5. Okay.
4 out of 5, 2 are meeting Friday night, 1's meeting Monday night.
Okay.
And Chesterfield Goshen's going to figure out when they can meet, whenever they can figure out a quorum.
All right, so he and I have started to talk just to try to get a little bit planning on what the timeline might be to get people in.
Again, I would just say, if we could resolve the ARPA, that gets Bradley squared away, the select board squared away, but it also tells me that there's more, it gives us more money because we kicked the can, let me just cut to the chase at the end. We kicked the can down the road on laptops. If right now we're sitting with supposedly an extra $200,000-300,000 in funds that we could spend, we could vote tonight to authorize that purchase of those laptops and get them in this year's thing to encumber the money.
Good.
Right?
Yeah,
because we were,
but you could, yeah.
Well,
but of all the things that we're not doing to the letter of the law, that one is not very big.
Well, because I did see that there's $20,000 unspent in curriculum material.
You guys can vote to realign the budget wherever you need to. So later in the packet, I have line item transfers for those general fund categories that are out of balance. And I tried to suggest putting enough money in there to cover some additional purchasing. But if we want to get a bunch of laptops with that money, then we can just transfer more into that category.
Right, the intent was we were going to tap the extraordinary one-time funds of $120,000 that we're sitting on.
The Chapter 70 extraordinary money.
Yeah. We had to use 5 to pay for the audit, so now we're down to 120. We haven't spent any.
Now, were those the funds that are going into central office, that one chunk of money, or?
We didn't need it for that, because we ended up having another line item to put it in.
Yeah, okay, and so that is one of the things that I have to put into this, but I would take that out of general funds because general funds are available.
Correct. Right. So, okay.
This is a little different direction, maybe not for tonight.
I would just also add this, that if you need laptops, you could rush and get them, if we get them in the next week or so. But you also should feel fairly comfortable that if you want to use next year, you can get next year's money.
I was just thinking if the order was placed, right, but if the order was placed now, they could be available for teachers the last week of August for deployment, instead of starting the school year in September, October, November. I don't know, you want to buy something else?
Yeah. Now, there's value to getting the order in early, but if it comes in like July 2nd, there's enough extra money now on the 25 ledger, $118,000 of rural aid that carries over, $56,000 a REAP that carries over.
So it doesn't work that if the order is placed and you have a purchase order in hand, you can encumber the funds and hold it?
If we have it before, the auditors won't like it, but I'll be gone by the time the auditors are looking at this. So if we have it encumbered before the end of June,
right,
we can do it from the general funds.
Okay.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, if that's a lot, because sometimes to get a big quote for a lot of tech equipment might take a while, I don't think you should sweat that much because there's enough extra money next year that you're going to be okay.
Okay. Dylan, question?
Yeah, so even after we do all this, I think you said the number we're coming up with general funds to return back to the towns around 235,000 for fiscal year '24?
That's just about the, right now.
Yeah,
Like,
close,
before I
it
do
doesn't
some of the
matter.
adjustments, that's right.
And how is that, John, compared to previous years? Do you know? Mickey, do you know?
Yeah, I tried to look it up, but I couldn't see easily what that was.
I know it's too late for this year, but looking forward, if that is going to be, at least for the next couple of years, going to be, at least next year, going to be a thing that continues to happen because we have excess funds in these accounts. As a local school and a department of the town, are we able to create our own reserve contingency funds?
I don't think we are.
Okay.
I think it's just regionals that can do that.
Right. No, that's fine. I just,
Are all these numbers supposed to add to that number?
Let me just say this, so that
I don't understand.
you can create stabilization funds. And there's different stabilization funds that you can create. I don't know the process of funding them. I don't know how much is in the school committee's purview and how much is in the town's purview.
okay.
And it definitely couldn't be done with this $230,000.
Oh, it's way too late for that. I get that. It's
But I just
more-
want to remind you, like, if you look at the bottom of the memo, you've got an extra 118,000 in rural aid that you didn't expect, 56,000, so we're up to 170. School choice is up by over 220,000, so now we're up to like 400 something. Preschool revolving is up by another 60,000 that you didn't expect. So we're talking about 500,000. Now the circuit breaker I'm going to take out of that, add, so that if I leave circuit breaker, you're talking about 400,000 or 500,000 of extra money that you didn't expect to have next year. That's really significant, and that doesn't include whatever there is in IDEA and title grants. So 500,000 is reasonable. The circuit breaker I take out because it's better to just, if you can bank the current year of circuit breaker and use the prior year, you're always better off because it's a great contingency.
Did you take out the money from these different things that we used for fiscal '25?
So,
Telling us balances and rural aid is
yeah,
when.
so I tried to put a chart together for the Westhampton committee last night and it confused them, so I took it out of this, but
No, my question is just some of these buckets of money we pulled from for fiscal '25, so these numbers that
you counted on 25 money for those sources. This is in addition to that.
That was my question, so these are things, this isn't like, this says 118, but we used 100 of it.
The chart that I was trying to create, and it was not clear enough, was here's what you had planned on having. Now with all this additional,
Okay.
here's what you have.
All right,
And it's
that's-
about $500,000 more dollars than you thought you had.
All right, so,
And I don't know if you're going to be able to answer this off the top of your head, but just looking at some, like, how did we overspend on legal? I thought we were on retainer with, and legal is showing,
$5,000 too much?
yeah.
Yeah, I don't know.
I don't understand
You have
that.
to-
Because I don't think we didn't do anything extraordinary. So I don't understand where
I
that's
have to look it
coming.
up. I might be able to get in and look at that, but that would be
Hey, somebody else.
because the eyes really haven't been on the flow in the general ledger for much of '23, right? So that was really not managed during '23, and then for up until recently in '24. So that's a long time. So the autopilot is very possible that accounts payable expenses hit the wrong accounts.
Yeah, it just seems odd because I don't recall having anything happen this year that we required additional legal services, so I thought that all that we had was.
Very possible.
My thought on that was I know the retainer between the law firm and the high school went up twice in the past year.
Ours did not.
I understand that, but there was, I'd have to go back and look at whether or not, and this is nothing to do with you, Mickey, but the confusion around what is HRSD, HRSC, and the district and the regional agreement.
Right.
And if the services, if the change in the contract was solely to the high school, or was one of those change in retainers to also include work for the regional, which would then be apportioned out, and how is that apportionment done through the regional agreement and the all-district committee. I know Kimberly was at several BDCs.
Right, I just think that's a
I have no,
mistake.
I probably, but I had no idea what.
And I know it's $5,000, it just jumps out because typically we have the retainer and that's what our legal fees are. and-
Yeah, I'm going to guess, I'm slowly getting there, but I'm going to guess that, you know, a invoice was tagged to that account that shouldn't have been tagged to that account.
We
And
can
I didn't get to, I definitely have not had the ability to.
Right.
Get
And we
to
could-
the
we
account by
could check-
account level.
I mean, we could chase some of those small things, but if I look under admin, at least looking at this, the assistant principal hasn't been paid anything.
So what,
School choice.
so was being paid out of school choice. When I reassign the school choice money, I will have to go back and reassign some of it to that account, but essentially I reassigned it to teacher accounts.
Okay.
But it,
So it's in the general.
yeah,
what I'm
so
calling
this
the
is, that
general
was an
right now.
example where she had been being paid from school choice, but it was built into the general fund budget.
But in theory, that 85,731 is back in school choice.
No.
It's the offset is on the
No,
teacher's line
It's
item?
somewhere down in teacher, so if probably I assigned, if you look on the teacher language arts line,
Well, okay, that was going to be one of my next questions.
so it's very negative. So it was a question of when I was doing these transfers, I was picking which general fund account to transfer them to.
Yep.
And there were, from school choice, there were, I don't know, 6, 7 different people getting paid.
Right, so when you
So
when you
to
did
do
those
it- to do
transfers,
it
did you take the
finally-
6 or 7 from school choice and get them into this, even if they went into the wrong line?
That's right.
They're in
the
here
right.
now.
They're in the general fund.
Now.
They're in the wrong line.
I got you.
Right?
Okay.
So I should have taken that 85,000, it shouldn't hit the teacher level account, it should have hit the admin level account.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I mean, this, you know, I've had probably 3 weeks, maybe 3 weeks or 4 weeks to focus on 24 budgets. And so this is the highest level, like, try to make sure that, my goals were to make sure the expiring grant money was spent, try to create as much carryover as possible, and really the thing I most wanted to do was give you and Eliza access to the full picture of funds, so that whoever's there next, you're gonna say, like, I want not just the general funds, I want to know what's going on with grants and with revolving funds too. And, but that account by account level, that is going to be beyond what
Okay.
we really can do. But it is in the general fund. Now, in terms of the line item transfers,
Is that down on page 10?
yeah, that's at the end. You know, because that Michelle's salary, you know, should be there, then that admin line, you know, would be basically zeroed out, and the staff salaries would be higher. But they're both positive anyway.
So we can just,
I would probably not be able to take the money from admin. I'd have to take it from staff salaries on that transfer.
so just walk me through, like, the first line, school committee. We're budgeted 7.
Yep.
We have 10,176 spent. 2,900 is encumbered,
Yep.
which gives us a shortfall of 6,100.
Right.
And then, am I going straight across?
Yeah,
We're going to
perfect,
solve
yeah.
that by
Keep
taking
going, yep, you got it.
10,000 from staff salaries,
That was the plan, yep.
and then new category budget of, to put into that line item?
That would, so now the school committee category would have 17,000 of budget authority,
Yep. And which
which
gives
would
us
make the end of year balance a positive 3,000.
3,863.
Yep.
Okay. And then, and central office is 0, so, all right.
Now, central office is an area that I still have to reconcile. It effectively will be 0 unless some of the budget authority that, the additional budget authority was created is underspent. So I made it partway through reconciling that, and then I had to pause because I had to get
Okay.
each of these committees their basics. So I don't think it'll change the bottom line for any committee, but I'm going to straighten that out before I go for sure.
And what exactly is instructional non-salary? that we're looking at?
So I put in there, and if you look up, I didn't number the page, I apologize, but it's category number 5, so if you open this booklet, it's going to be across 2 pages. So it's all the supplies.
Yep.
Curriculum materials, professional development. I included student technology and software pieces in there.
Okay.
There's some contracted services for,
Right, so that's overspent by 146 right now.
right,
Primary, and 138 of it is special ed contracted services.
yes.
Okay.
And that was, and so, and that was true in some other districts, and
Yep.
I'm curious about that, whether those expenses could not have gone up by that much from prior years, and I'm curious if it was intended that that money was supposed to come from the IDEA grants. There will be time next year to reconcile that and reassign it, so we were fixing 23 accounts all through, you know, until close to May.
So after taking the you're going to put 180,000 in, what do you do? So we need to put money into it. So out of the tuition account, budgeted for 309, we only spent 2,600.
Now that is so low because circuit breaker
That added
to be spent down.
Yep.
Because the circuit breaker you can only keep for the next year.
Yep.
The max is the award you got for this year. So the award you got was about 78,000. So I had to spend circuit breaker down. Now, I'm pretty sure that circuit breaker had not been applied to the 23 funds.
Yep.
And so it was a higher amount than it should have been. And so therefore, much of that tuition cost was covered by circuit breaker.
Right.
And you can see that on the totals, you know, on the detail line too, if you.
So doing that will leave 109,000 in that line item afterwards.
That's correct.
And then what is page 11?
Page 11 is, so you and I, and you're the only person, John, that I've talked to about it, is that, hey, we never actually looked at 23. So this is the 23 budget and expenditures in the same categories and the end of the year balance. And so there are small negative balances everywhere except building and ground where there's a bigger one. I guess tuition's a bigger one. So these would be the line items that you would be taking 200,000 from the staff salaries line and distributing it to cover the other categories.
And this is all within general
These are
fund?
only general funds.
Right, okay, so it's just cleaning up the books that have already been closed.
Yeah, and I mean, I'll be honest, this is the first time I've ever done line item transfers. We didn't have to do them in Holyoke because of the receivership structure.
No, just at regional where you got to have those votes, right? Or, who knows, we're very unique.
If it's just regional, then you guys don't have to
There's
do
a lot of rules that just apply to us.
Yeah, if it's just regional, then this is not the regional budget, this is just.
No, but at the town level, you can't do transfer, you can't transfer between line items without a vote of the body.
Yeah, okay.
Of the select board, in this case, the
So,
committee.
I mean, so this would basically be, so it's only the general funds, and it would be, you know, we had talked earlier in the year about, back when Andrea was here, and I just got hired, about different ways to do them. You could do it on the account by account level.
Right.
I think that'd be a little crazy. So we talked about doing it on the category level and say, and exactly the conversation we're having, okay, well, instructional non-salary is a lot higher than we had budgeted for. So we're going to transfer money, but because circuit breaker allowed us to not spend as much general fund money on tuition, we're going to transfer budget authority from the tuition area into the instructional non-salary area, cover that expense.
So is there, I'm just focusing on that $109,000 that's left in the instructional non-salary, category 5.
Yep.
Is there a line item that we could transfer 50 or 60,000 into and just pay cash for this van?
Yes,
preschool van.
so I was thinking that same thing, Lisa and I talked about it this morning, that if the van is ready to be purchased, we could do that, and so,
It's a capital item. And I'm not seeing a capital line item, but
and there's a capital expense that came in that I think was in the town funds. I'd have to talk
Or could-
to
I mean,
Scott
we were-
Bradley
we were gonna
about where
fund
it
it-
would come
we
from,
were
but it
gonna-
could be that, this money's going back to the town, so could they purchase it from their capital account?
no. No, because the authorization is for the school committee to borrow X amount of money or however to utilize it. So if we just name, like I'm thinking, couldn't we put the money into the preschool revolving account? Because that's where we're going to use it anyways.
Absolutely, and there's no money being spent out of the
And we
preschool
already
revolving account?
have the authorization from town meeting to tap that line if we need to.
Yep.
To sign a
Oh, you guys
three-year
voted on
fund.
that. You guys voted on that in the fall, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was from preschool revolving that you were going to do it. And so there's definitely the money there to do it. And I think the cleanest thing to do would be to spend it from there. We couldn't reallocate that spending into the general funds very easily, but it would be fine to just leave it in the school, in the preschool revolving. And if it's in the preschool revolving, it doesn't have to be done by June 30th. It can be done at whatever point it.
So I would suggest that we need to take 3 votes. First votes is page 10, which is just to do the line item transfers that are proposed here to,
Fiscal year '24.
for fiscal year '24, would be step 1.
With you on that.
Is this for this year or for the
So-
year coming 24, 25?
No.
But
it's-
24 is,
Yeah, so procedural-wise, under normal circumstances, the business administrator would come before this committee on a quarterly basis and say, okay, and it's usually substitute teaching or paraprofessionals that we have to do a balance between and say, okay, we're a little over here, we have a long-term sub. So they say, we want to take it from this bucket, we want to put it in this bucket, we vote on it, we sign it, then it's all covered and the auditors do it, they do it, and Bradley gets his copy of it.
Probably.
Town accountant.
Okay.
So because the town accountant keeps a separate set of books, and the schools keep separate books, and they got to be in line with each other. And then always at the end of the year, we go through this exercise and say, okay, is there extra money? Are there any expenses that throughout the year we had charged to school choice that we didn't need to, we just did because we needed a funding source? Make that account whole, because that in essence is our reserve account.
Rainy day fund.
Yes. So this is a normal thing to do, to clean these up at this, and because this is our last meeting before we close, we won't be here again to do transfers in this year, and you only have until, I think, July 15th to do it.
Oh, right, because it goes, okay, July to
fiscal year,
July.
so the issue with
Right.
fiscal year was July 1, 23
To
through
July
June 30,
30th.
24.
Right.
So fiscal year 24 is actually a year, is ending in 2 weeks.
Gotcha. Okay.
So I'll make the motion to approve the line item transfers for fiscal year '24 totaling $236,379.24 as outlined on page 10 of the business administrator's report.
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. Last page, page 11, are to do interfund line transfers only involving the general fund of the schools for fiscal year '23, totaling $429,980, as illustrated on page 11 of the business administrator's report.
Second.
I'll make the motion, seconded by Dylan. Discussion on that one? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Eliza, for the third step, do you have a ballpark on what the cost of the van will be? Nearest $1,000?
Say that again?
To the nearest thousand?
I would say 61,000.
6-1?
Yeah.
61. So I think that should be, we should do a single line item transfer of $61,000 from instructional non-salary to the preschool revolving account.
I don't think you have the authority to transfer general funds into a school revolving account. So what I do have the ability to do, and I've done this already, is that any spending that was hitting the revolving accounts, I said, nope, we don't need to spend the revolving account money. We have general fund money.
Has that already been zeroed out?
Zeroed out. So if you look on the totals page, it's the second piece of paper, the first side of the front piece of paper.
So that brings me back, is there a line item within the general fund that would support purchasing a vehicle?
I don't know how the capital purchases would work within I think that it can be purchased outright with general funds without a problem. So you could encumber that money now, pay for the van, and it's just a question of what category it goes into within the general fund category. So which would probably be an account that isn't currently having money hit it.
Well, I mean, it could be as simple as instructional non-salary other expenses.
That's what I was going to suggest.
All right, so.
In which case.
And that's already in that category.
We would just change the line item transfer. We would need to add at least 30,000 to the line item transfer into that account, which is not a problem.
Wait, with the transfers we just
Isn't
did.
there already $100 and something thousand in there?
Right, it leaves 109,000 available in that category.
So we would just transfer more money in there from tuition. So right now, the transfer of 180,000 is presented would bring it up to 34,873. So if we transferred an additional 60,000, then that's going to more than cover it.
It doesn't, why doesn't the 109,874 cover it? That's what I'm not. The transfer we just did means that.
Has an end-of-year balance of 109.
Right, and so if we want to take 61 out of that, then we'd
Yeah,
still
but
have an end-of-year balance of like 40.
I gotta say, these line item transfers seem a little, I gotta read up on like why they matter. But, because it's just general funds, right? So it doesn't matter like which category it's in. If we're doing it, and we're gonna pay for the van out of an account that is in the instructional non-salary line, currently with the transfers that you just approved, there would only be $35,000 available in that line.
But that's not what this paper says.
If we go on page 10.
Page 10, the new end-of-year balance is the end-of-year balance for each category.
Right, so tuition all the way across, we're sending money into instructional non-salary. Well, actually, yeah, it was negative 180, printing 129, and then says new end-of-year balance is 109,874.
Yeah, I maybe should present this differently, but essentially, the new end-of-year balance for the instructional non-salary line is the very last number, 34,873. So after we transfer in 180,000,
See
the
from
budget
tuition
authority.
above, third line, go up 3.
Right, so basically, that line that says amount, should probably say increase budget by, or change budget by that amount. So we're transferring 180 of budget authority from tuition into instructional non-salary, but we would want to transfer more to cover the purchase of the van.
And where would that come from?
We still have 109,000 in tuition, so we would just change that from 180,000 to 240,000.
I get it.
Oh, so the remaining, that 109.
Tuition here.
Yeah.
This number relates to this account. This number relates to this account,
Okay.
not here. So
Yeah.
that's current, that's new. So our new end-of-year balance
Is
for
in tuition
tuition,
is the 109.
our new end-of-year balance in tuition, correct, is 109, not instructional non-salary. Just clicked.
So if you
Thank
just, so if you just
I was
vote,
like,
if you just vote to say we want to transfer an additional 60,000 from the tuition category, general funds, into the instructional non-salary, then we'll have enough money in that section to cover the purchase of the van.
So the motion is to transfer an additional $63,000 from tuition to instructional non-salary, other expenses.
Are you making that motion?
Sure, yes.
Second.
And then,
Any discussion?
I mean, we're sure all of this money is where it's supposed to be and that this
What
is.
am I taking it out?
No, not even close.
Okay, I just wanted on record that this.
Welcome, Jen.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? So,
so I'm glad that we went through that. I'll present those transfers in a much simpler form for the next, so you guys were the
then,
We're the guinea pigs.
sacrificial.
Well, we're so
lambs for
smart, we
that.
figured it out, so, yeah.
yeah. So then so Lisa, the key for you would be to get that order contract signed and
Get that
whatever.
baby.
By the 30th?
Yeah.
I was gonna say, does this make it now that this has to be done by the 30th? Or this
Right.
makes us so we have
But
time?
I think if you just sign the purchase order with mark out for it or whoever it is, that then you have the purchase order, it's signed, it's that line item, the funds are encumbered. Right.
So I think we have until July 15th to encumber, correct? Or July 15th to spend.
But the date of the transaction has to be in the
I
fiscal year.
understand that, yeah, but we can just get that, yeah, I got you.
Right.
Yep.
Build that van.
Okay.
I know who's gonna build it.
Anything else? Well, that was very productive.
Sure it was.
So once there's somebody for me to transfer knowledge to, I'll make sure that they understand where this money lies. And I know that there's a lot of information on here. It's the first time that you've ever seen this body of information. And I think what I might just try to do is take that last column of the revolving funds and make sure people know how much is in the revolving funds, make sure that people know how much is carrying over in the grants from last year that's available. And when we, in fact, what I'm going to do is when we create the 25 accounts, I will add budget for those areas of the grants. That's easy. And the revolving funds, I would just insist on how do we keep track of what the balance in the revolving funds are. That would, because that's a big source of money that decision-making really should be, you should know as you're trying to make decisions about things.
Okay.
Thanks.
Thanks, Mickey.
Thank you.
All your hard work over the past.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Is there anything else before we adjourn? Jen, do you want to make the motion?
I motion that we close the meeting.
Is a motion to adjourn? Is there a second?
There is.
Hearing no discussion, all in favor, aye.
Aye.
Meeting is adjourned at 7:48.